Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, quick review of a basic study techniques to help you navigate through this sixth edition of the ACE study or ACE Personal Trainer Exercise Professionals Guide to Personal Training. Again, there's videos that we've done obviously prior to this, but it's always good to do a quick review. And if there's any sort of new nuances, techniques, then I'll be giving them to you, of course. But the hardest thing about dealing with the ACE sixth edition, like any of the other editions, or by the way, any other manuals or textbooks, is just the total amount of information. And so the goal, of course, is to do what? To memorize it. So in this video, I just want to reiterate and kind of go over a technique. There are a couple of techniques with ACE's textbook that you can use. I just want to go over one sort of general way to deal with all of this material. Remember, when you use the word studying, when you say, well, I'm going to study right today for an hour or 2 hours, whatever the case is, got to be very clear. What does that mean? What is the goal of studying? Well, this is a sort of a paradigm shift for a lot of people. Studying for most people means reading the material, right? And then maybe taking some notes. Well, the taking notes part is fine because you're not studying unless you're doing physical stuff. Literally listening, just listening to material being read to you is not studying. It's not. It's the beginning or part of it, just like reading. When I open my textbook and start reading it, it's really cool, good information. But if all I do is read, I'm not studying. Studying is hard, is work, right? It involves work. Reading is not work. Now, reading begins the study process. So a better way to format this, and again, paradigmatically, it's probably a change for some folks, is whenever you see the word study, or whenever you say, I'm going to study today, right? Air quotes. Substitute the word study or studying with the word memorize. Memorization. Memorization. That's what studying ultimately is trying to help you to do, is to memorize information. Why? Because you're going to take an exam. And you do want to know some of the stuff anyway, right? But you can always refer back to it. It's not like you got to memorize this information in order to train people. You don't, because you can always refer back to it at some point if you don't remember it. But to pass an exam, you have to be able to retrieve data that you have consumed, information you've consumed, and now spit it back out, so to speak, onto your exam questions. So the goal then is in studying is memorization. Once you start substituting the word memorization or memorize, it's going to change the way you think about how you go at this stuff. Okay, so now, hey, Doug, how much time are you going to study? No, the question is how much time am I going to put in today memorizing the materials that I need to memorize? I'm going to be in chapter 2, all right, or I'm in chapter 4. I'm going to memorize, or I'm going to begin the memorization process for 2 hours a day. Now, even though we use the word studying, I want you to think memorization. So that's the technique, the study techniques are memorization techniques. That's why you're using flashcards. That's why you're using all of these sort of modalities in studying is to help you memorize. So use the word memorize, memorization. That's what begins the learning process. Okay, you have to memorize your 2 times tables, your 5 times tables. You memorize those. So use the word memorization in place of studying. So how do we do that, right? So the first thing I want you to do is remember that the textbook that you have, the ACE 6th edition textbook, has some formatting that helps you with that a little bit, okay? And that's what I want to go over with you. One of the challenges is trying to get people to not read. This is not a novel. It's not a novel, so don't read it like a novel. What you need to do to be efficient in your studying is look for the tips and ideas and tricks that the text is giving you, right, to navigate to that information that's most important, okay? So here's how it works. And what I want to do is doesn't really matter which chapter because they're all essentially the same. Okay, so the methodology here, I'm just reviewing it, is to first off, at the beginning of your chapter, this is generally what you're going to do. And what most people do is they go to the beginning of the chapter and they look in this chapter and they look da 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 da, and then they start, okay, whew, let me read through it. Man, that's brutal. By the way, did I show you how thick it was again? That's a huge textbook. Okay, don't be reading this thing. You don't have to. But if you like to read and you don't have any issues with it and you're actually able to memorize pertinent data and information, absolutely go read it. Don't listen to me. But it's a colossal waste of time for most people. It's a colossal waste of time to literally read every word, and you don't need to pass the ACE exam. Okay. It doesn't mean that the information's not good. It doesn't mean that at all. It's great information. But if your goal is to pass their exam, you need to navigate through this material. You need to do it in a, relatively, um, well paced. Don't take a year to do it. Don't do it in a month. I mean, unless you can. The point is that you want to do it at a fairly good pace to where you're not forgetting the materials that you first started, right? That you started working on in chapter one, for instance. So the recommendation is that when you hit the chapter, so I'm just going to start on I'll be in chapter 6, right? You're going to start chapter 1, obviously. One of the first things I do is I always go to the back of that chapter. It's the first thing I do. And in the case of ACE, they do give you a summary, a brief summary, and that's a good place to start. So step 1, do yourself a favor, take a deep breath and start your study time by getting your brain sort of warmed up a little bit. And that's what that little summary does for you. So chapter 6, go to the very back. And the first thing you do is on page 210, do a quick run through. An individual's health is greatly influenced by the foods they consume. And then you read it. You don't have to take notes on it. That's not the point of this first step, right? You just kind of read the summary, and that pulls your brain into what the materials are going to start to kind of give you information on. Okay. So that's why I always like to start with reading the summary. Now, of course, ACE University, on the top of that page, if you purchase all of their materials, you can visit their acefitness.org, log in, and they have online guided study, yada, yada. Nothing wrong with that. Not necessary, but if you like to do it, then go for it. So step 1, go back, just read the summary, get yourself sort of mentally prepared on what's going to happen when you get into the text. Then I go to the beginning. You have your pad and paper. Pad and paper and pen, right? So you have paper and pen, pad and pen. I like to use pads. It just makes me feel, I don't know, makes me feel more academic. So I just have pads. I have a ton of pads that I use to take notes with. And I'm constantly writing notes, tear it off, throw it away, because I don't need those notes only when I'm rewriting the notes. But step 1, read the summary. Step 2 is now, again, multiple ways to do this, but I want to give you the basic, most general way to move through the materials. And you're going to use a couple of very simple techniques. The first one that you definitely want to do is look at your learning objectives. Okay. Upon completion of the chapter, the reader will be able to explain those should be something you focus on. So you would write those down, right? And once you're done studying that chapter, see if you can actually do what the learning objectives say. Can you explain what is within a personal trainer's scope of practice as it relates to nutrition? No. Well, go in and look for the answer to it, because literally the answer is in the text. So that would be one of the things that you'll do at the very end after you're done. But I would write those down on a sheet of paper, put those off to the side. Now we get to the actual materials. And the first thing I want you to do, first and foremost, before anything else, is you are going to look for a number of things inside the text. Okay. One of those things are bullet points or numbered parts in the text, because what ACE has done for you is they have summarized points. That's what bullet points are doing. Okay. So literally on page 165 at the very bottom, I see bullet points. Now, here is the kind of the thing with bullet points is that You don't want to memorize the whole bullet point, especially when it's more than about 5 to 10 words. You're going to use a technique called the irreducible minimum technique or irreducible minimum method of squeezing, or I like to use the word crush. Take a sentence of 10, 15, 20 words and crush it down to 3 words, maybe 4 words. And the way you do that is by removing and eliminating extraneous or unnecessary words in the sentence, okay? They're just not necessary for you to remember so that you can, when you're taking the test and you're looking at a question, that will get you to trigger the memory of that particular piece of information. You're going to do this throughout the entire chapter. Anytime you see bullet points or you see numbering or something like that, the editor, the publisher, has actually taken information that's in the text and they've squeezed it and summarized it into bullet points, because that's what bullet points do. They give you a list. They're summarizing the information. Well, all you're doing is taking one step further in the summarization, in summarizing, right, that information. And you're doing it by removing some words. Now I'll give you an example. So I'm on page 165. Open your textbooks with me. And it says, should also have personal trainers who have earned certification, yada, yada. And those who have undertaken nutrition continuing should also be prepared to discuss, boom, these are the things you need to memorize for the most part. Principles of healthy nutrition and food preparation. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7 words. I can easily get rid of a couple of words and still get the gist of what that bullet point is saying, right? Prepared to discuss nutrition, food prep. I don't need the word healthy nutrition. Why? Because I'm studying for personal training. It's implicit. I don't need the word healthy when I'm going through or talking about principles that I want to talk about. I hope that makes sense. Now, this is me. If you want to keep the word healthy in there, go for it. Me, I'm trying to get it down to 1 or 2 words. And in this case, be prepared. I would write down prepared to discuss, number 1, or in this case, just a little slash, nutrition, food prep. Nutrition, food prep. Nutrition, food prep. 3 words. Got it. Next one, food to be included in the balanced daily diet. Think about the words you can remove from there. Foods in diet. I already know implicitly, because I'm a trainer, a coach, talking about nutrition, balanced daily is unnecessary. It's implicit. I already know. So when I talk about diet, foods in the diet, that's all I need. That's what I'm going to talk to people about. I don't need to memorize foods to be included in the balance. You get the idea. So this technique requires a little bit of, it requires a standard skill, right? Removing adjectives, adverbs, maybe some prepositions if they're not needed, using equal signs, up arrows, down arrows, things like that, to give you the gist of the of the sentence or the phrase. You get the idea? As well as looking at it from the perspective of, do I get the gist of it by these 2 words or these 3 words? And the answer is probably yes. Now, it may take you a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 pass-throughs to get rid of the words that you don't need. Now, again, we're not eliminating words just willy-nilly. We're eliminating words that you intrinsically know and will be triggered. When I talk about nutrition and diet, I implicitly know, triggering in my brain, are the words healthy, daily. Those are implicit in the concept of nutrition. So I hope that makes sense. So when you go through these essential nutrients needed by the body, I don't need the phrase needed by the body. Not in my memorization, not in my note taking. What else am I prepared to discuss? Essential nutrients. 2 words. Actions of nutrients on the body. I don't need on the body. Just actions, nutrients, if I wanted to do it that way, right? And this is easy because there's only 6 words in the sentence. I'm just getting rid of 3. Go through those. That's page 165. So I hope that makes sense. So that's what you're doing. So anywhere you see, hey, look at that, page 166. I've got more bullet points, more bullet points. So that's number 1. You go through and you look for bullet points and they have a lot of them. Okay. And your goal ultimately, as you move through the chapters, whenever you see bullet points, try to collapse, compress, remove extraneous, non essential words and terms. So you get down to just a couple of words that are sufficient from a definitional perspective, are sufficient to trigger the memory of exactly what it is. And then you write that down. You rewrite it. Okay. So that's bullet points. The other things are tables, right? So remember, bullet points, tables, charts, figures, anything that is not the written word, not the text, not the text. It's too much of that. They've basically helped you by literally telling you or targeting you exactly where you need to go. That's where the tables come in. So here we go. I've already gotten through. I started on page 165, and I've got text. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bullet points. Got it. Wrote it down in my notes. 166, more bullet points. A couple more bullet points. By the way, yes, read the expand your knowledge boxes. Expand your knowledge. Yes, absolutely. Read those guys for sure. There's nothing wrong with doing that. They can be very, very helpful, right? But the point is that I'm giving you that part of the text. Yes, read those. Those are sort of aside. That's like step 2 or 3. Up, got to more bullet points. Boom, page 169. I'm at table 6.1. Oh my goodness. How am I going to memorize that entire table? I didn't say to memorize every table. What I told you was look to the table. You're going to have to make that decision or that determination. What I will tell you is this: if there's lots of information, lots of words and terms, and there's precision levels of data, like all of these numbers, I wouldn't worry about trying to memorize all that. It would be impossible. Okay. Um, it just so happens that the daily nutritional goals for age, sex groups, right, is just basic information that you can refer back to, not necessary to memorize a chart like that. That's a skill that you develop, right? So the skill is understanding how to deal with bullet points, and another skill or sort of a I would say more of a personal discernment process is looking and saying, I'm not memorizing that. There ain't no way I'm going to memorize that. Right. And that's a good idea. I would not try to memorize, for instance, table 6.1, but you are going to be drawn to it. If it's a table, at least look at it and make that decision. I can't memorize all that information, then move on. Okay. If you go into the Body Design University um, course itself for the ACE examination, I spend a pretty good amount of time explaining exactly which ones you should know and others you don't need to know. So the point is that this general explanation, look, I've got more bullet points. I'm on page 171. I've already gotten past. I do the choose my plate.gov figure 6.1. If it's me, I'm redrawing it. I'm going to redraw any pictures. Okay. Expand your knowledge. And then you can get to another great example, figure 6.2. Take a look at figure 6.2. You're not memorizing that, folks. Got to be a little discerning about what it is you need to memorize and not memorize. So even though I want you to look at figures, you got to be wise enough to say, they're not going to want me to know all this data. And you're correct. Okay. So I moved through, look how fast I've already gone through um, chapter 6. Think it through. Yes, anything that has expand your knowledge, think it through. Yeah, go ahead and read it. Um, and that's how you're going to go through the chapter. So remember, the basic premise here is that ACE has ACE has summarized a lot of data for you, so where you don't have to read all the information in the text. Are you going to miss a little bit of it? Maybe, but guess what they've done for you? Step 2 or step 3, wherever I'm at. Look for the bolded words. Okay, I'm on page, it's all over the place, but I'm on page 180. Trans fats. Okay, no worries there. Sodium, and boom, I get a bolded term, congestive heart failure. Ding, ding, ding. Write it down and write its definition down. They want you to know that. Okay. So anytime you see bolded words, bolded terms, that's a trigger. Go ahead and write it down. That means they want you to know that. And so you get the idea. Number one, read the summary, brief, real simple, get your brain sort of warmed up a little bit. Go to the beginning of the chapter. You're looking for bullet points, numbered, right? Anything that's numbered. You're looking at figures, charts, and you have to make a decision, be discerning as to whether or not they really want you to memorize all of those pieces of data. Most of it, in most cases, a lot of that data is just not necessary to memorize, but at least look and review it. Look at your figures and your pictures, redraw those. That's what I would do. And then you're looking for bolded words and terms, and you can run through a chapter and just write that stuff down. And then you can go back and review them again as needed. It's much faster to do this than reading through everything and start taking notes or even using highlighters. Highlighters are the worst thing ever. Useless, just a massive waste of time, in my humble opinion. They do nothing more than get you doing what you don't need to do anyway, which is just read. Because all they're doing is dialing you back in. And you know as well as I do, when you do your highlighting, you're literally highlighting everything. You might leave a sentence out. Well, that's not helping you, not from a studying perspective, not from a memorization perspective. Now, last thing in this sort of simple general overview is that ACE gives you a little olive green box known as the mover method box. It doesn't hurt to read through it. I would not spend a whole lot of time taking notes on it. It's just basically giving you an idea of how to use their ABC technique or the mover method. And yes, read through it. If you want to take some basic notes, use the same technique, the irreducible minimum technique, so that you are not memorizing whole words and terms or sentences. I hope that makes sense. And now, again, I'm just in chapter 6, figure 6.6. I would literally draw that. I'm not going to do a good drawing of it. And then I would write down individual characteristics, close relationships. Why? Because it's two words, built environment two, and I would maybe make a note or two on each of those. I hope that makes sense. 186. I'm on food labels. Is anybody timing me? It's not taking me very long. Don't worry about obviously don't worry about the hyperlinks that they give you in the textbook, but I'm on page 188, for instance, and I'm like, okay, well, percent daily value. It's in bold. Write it down. Move down. Dietary supplement. Okay, write that down. You see they're all bolded. That's the only reason why I'm stopping, because I'm seeing bolded and I'm seeing information that is in a bullet point or in a list. And then I just keep moving down, do the math. Sure. And you get the idea. For the most part, I'm trying not to read the text, but everything else in the chapter is what I'm going to kind of focus on, I guess, if you want to say it like that. Look at this, collaborating with registered. The idea that they're going to ask you lots of questions on this is pretty low. They're not asking a lot of questions anyway. Okay, table 6.3, fluid replacement. Well, that looks like something I could probably put some time into memorizing, right? And I would redo this chart, but I would, again, collapse down the total amount of information. If I can get rid of words and terms, then I will. And that's how I'm doing this. So evaluating sports drinks. Okay, I'll give you an example. Table 6.4. Do you need to memorize table 6.4? Of course not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 2, 4, 6. There's 42 individual pieces of data. ACE is not expecting you to memorize and know that. Okay. So just using a little bit of common sense, that's not information that you're probably going to see on an exam. There's an expand your knowledge. Yes. You see, when all is said and done, I can get all of this. I can do a run through of a chapter with a little bit of my note taking, like we've explained, with a single run through, probably within 15 to 20 minutes. That's not bad. Okay. And I'm at the end of the chapter already. So that's the basic tenet of how I want you to go through the studying. You are basically, for the most part, trying not to read the information, but look at where ACE has done you. They've done you a service by summarizing, compressing data into charts, into some tables. They've got bullet points, they've got number lists, they've got bolded information. Is that going to give you all of the information? It's going to give you the majority of it in every single chapter in this textbook. So I hope it was helpful to go through this. It's just basically a review. There are other methods or different ways that you can go through the chapter again, and I will do that for you in later videos. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. There's a bell, obviously, that will, if you click on it, it's the notification, right? Leave me comments. Let us know if that works. And by the way, if you find ways to use the irreducible minimum, write that in the comments that you said, you were on page 165 and you did this, and this is what I compressed it to. Write that down. Let us know if it's working for you, or if you have other techniques that you like to use that work well for you. Not let us know, but you're basically letting everybody else know that watches the video. Of course, you can also like and share the video as well, and have a great week. Just let us know we can be of assistance, because we want you to pass your ACE exam, obviously, and do it in a timely fashion. So more than happy to help you with that. Have a great week. We will see you next week. Thanks.